Sherry Scott is a born and raised Edmontonian, and she has been working in the field of human resources for the past 25 years. After graduating with an HR degree, she has served on many boards. For example, the CPHR Alberta, the Alberta Hotel Safety Association, the Hotel HR Committee, and the NATE Hospitality Management Advisory Board. Currently, Sherry is the dual HR director for Doubletree by Hilton West Edmonton, Home to Suites West Edmonton, and the Mayfield Dinner Theatre. Let's welcome Sherry to our Leadership and Career Talk. I'm so excited to have this opportunity to talk to you about your career experience as an HR leader for one of the largest hotel chains in Canada, and also hear your advice for our job seekers who are interested in getting to the field of HR or hospitality.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Okay, that's great. I know just a little bit about Silver Birch. I heard that Silver Birch Hotel assets have 7 hotels that are operated under major international brands such as Hilton and Marriott. And another large part of the portfolio of hotels are licensed and managed by Marriott International and include Delta by Marriott branded properties.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us more.
Okay, well, I actually joined the Silver Birch group in 2012. At that time, they did have a few more properties, but I started at what was then the Radisson Hotel Edmonton South as the HR director, and I worked there for 3 years, had a wonderful run there, and then the opportunity for this property, still under the Silver Birch name, came up here at the Doubletree by Hilton and also the Home 2 Suites by Hilton behind us. And what really intrigued me about this particular property was that it also had a 452-seat dinner theater known as the Mayfield Dinner Theatre here in the city.
That's
so
excellent.
It's been, that's what I've been doing, and Silver Birch actually has been a great management company. We had new owners that came in 2017. They're very, that's pretty common in the hospitality industry. And when they bought the hotels up, they also bought the management company. So hence it's Silver Birch that manages all of us. And then there are a number of properties that are either branded with a Hilton or a Marriott. There's a Fairfield Inn and Suites and a Residence Inn by Marriott as well. And then the others, there's another Doubletree in Regina and a couple hotels in Halifax. So I know they're always looking at different opportunities to purchase other hotels, but it obviously has to be the best fit for their organization and for the management company as well. So I was hoping they would open one in Hawaii.
Yeah. And as you know, Sherry, I'm a person who really love traveling, and I stay with a lot of hotels. Just in Canada alone, I know there are many hotels and many hotel chains. So what sets Silver Birch apart?
Right. Well, as you said, you stay in a lot of hotels, and there's actually 20 million hotel rooms throughout the world. 20 million, that's crazy. And so that's a lot of hotels, and we have to work really hard at being able to stand out. Certainly our brand, Hilton, provides us with a lot of specific standards that have to be followed. And I really believe that those are what makes us stand out here in the city. We have been the only Doubletree up until last year in 2019 when another one has opened downtown. But just the Hilton brand itself has very specific guidelines in terms of their service, the service delivery, and obviously standards throughout the hotel in terms of aesthetics and just basically how the hotel is run. And that's audited actually on an annual basis to ensure that we're following those standards so that we can maintain that brand.
Wow, that's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
And so the pandemic situation has caused a lot of organization stress, especially for the hospitality entertainment industry. It's hit really hard. So what have your properties been doing these days?
Very good question. Well, certainly this whole pandemic has taught us to be a little bit more flexible, to be a little bit more adaptable, and to look at things a lot differently. Unfortunately, here in this particular property, the Doubletree, we did have to close the doors on March 26th. We do not have a definite reopening date, but we look forward to that day very soon. And so that was obviously a huge challenge. I have over 375 employees here at the hotel. Well, actually 350 that worked out of this property, and then 25 at the Home 2. Our Home 2 Suites remains open for business. It's an extended stay property, so there are a lot of people that are looking for that type of accommodation, and even those that would have perhaps stayed here because their plans were already in place, we just relocated them behind us into the Home 2 Suites. So just the whole layoff of that amount of people itself was a huge, it was very stressful, it was emotional, and really a lot of information to have to communicate to people for them to understand, because of course they're stressed out, they don't know what's happening. There's no, we've never had a pandemic here. I mean, not since 1918, I think. I wasn't there. I wasn't around then. So anyways, that, you know, it was very, very hard for a lot of people to even understand, like, why are we closing? Like, what's going on? Some of them weren't even aware of how serious this pandemic, COVID-19, had progressed as it did so quickly. And so, yeah, that was an unfortunate, I want to say probably the most devastating part of my career was to actually sit down and lay off that amount of people, knowing them all and knowing that, you know, I don't know when we could call them back, and or when this will end, or when it will get better. And as much as I continue to hope that that will be very soon, nobody really knows. But it does look like there is some light in the tunnel. The health authorities have lifted a few of their regulations in the past week to 10 days. So we do believe it looks promising and that we will get back to business pretty soon. So to then ask them to come into work made some people uneasy. So we had to actually turn to some employees over at this hotel to help us out over there, because the few people that we do have over there, some of them were unable to work because they were doing self-isolation, or they had somebody that was elderly or children that, you know, they closed the daycares, they closed the schools, so now they were unable to work. So there were all these different factors that were being thrown every day to try and balance and manage. So we had to make sure, naturally, that we had all the right PPE, the personal protective equipment, in place. We had hazmat suits for the room attendants, and having the proper masks, which of course were very hard to come by. So yeah, there's just so many things to have to look after, but it's been a learning experience for sure, and I can't wait for it to be over.
Same here. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure many people are thinking the same way, hoping for the same thing. Yeah. And our audience have heard a little bit about Silver Birch, about your COVID-19 experience. So let's focus now on you, Sherry, your experience as an HR leader in this field. Okay. So tell the audience more about how you became the HR leader.
Oh my gosh, well, that's a long story, Ada. Well, okay, so you know what? When I was just coming out of high school, I worked for a large department store, and they did have a nice management training program, which I was intrigued by. I was a young adult in the 80s, so the 80s were booming at that time, and there was really not the urgency or the push to actually go to secondary education. So I actually went and worked. And when I went to work for this large department store, and this lady called me in, I think I was 18 years old at the time, and I thought, wow, this is a great job. She's got a beautiful office, and she gets to talk to people all day and hire people, like train people. Like, that looks like a really cool job. I want to do that job. So I think that was the first time that I actually, you know, knew what I wanted to do, because when we're young, we don't know what we really want to do. I don't even know if that's changed now. People are like, I don't know, I'm just gonna wing it. But yeah, at the time, so I just went through their management training program at this department store, and I was with them for a period of 12 years and eventually ended up as back then it was called the personnel manager. I was the personnel administration manager for that store that I was at for about 4 years. So that was a really great start. But I can certainly tell you that over the years, this profession has changed very much, very significantly. Department store actually went bankrupt and closed. So once I started applying for other positions, I quickly learned I did not have an educational piece of paper to actually demonstrate that I knew what I was doing. So at the age of 30, I went back to school. Immediately after I graduated from that, I landed a position in the hospitality industry. So that brought me into hotels and into HR. And I can tell you over the years that what might have started off as being the person that did the interviews, hiring, and perhaps a few firings, as they said back in the day, that quickly changed because certainly training became very relevant. Just even the whole recruitment process and following the employment standards and following human rights. Those are things that I can honestly tell you were not that important back in the day. So things have come a long ways, and I'm very glad that they have. And certainly there's everything, even health and safety. There was no, like health and safety, yeah, you wanted to work safely, but there weren't specific codes or regulations that you were aware of. We'll put it that way. And somehow that also landed on the HR desk. So I've been very active within the health and safety industry within hotels as well. And I am quite passionate about that. And then also just, just being a part of building a team and building really positive employee relations, I feel is something that I have excelled at and I enjoy, and really that's what keeps me coming to work every day, just to see everybody happy, enjoying their job and loving what they're doing. Life is too short to do something that you do not like. So if you find yourself in a job that you don't like, my best advice is to find another one, hopefully while you're still working, but look for something else. Don't stick with something that makes you unhappy, because we don't know how long we have on this earth, especially now. I think with the pandemic that's come upon us, that's really made us take another look at our lives and what we want to do with them and what's important to us and what are our own personal values. And I think if you can dig deep into that, you will be very successful. Actually.
Yeah. And Sherry, over the years, I'm sure that you have dealt with so many hotel general managers, even property owners, as well as department managers, employees, and general public customers, as well as the board. Yeah. What do you think is the one trait or characteristic, if you will, that sets you apart from other business professionals?
I really think that, and that's true. I certainly have, I talk to everybody from the dishwasher to the room attendant, up to the CEO, up to the owners. And you have to, I'm not going to lie, you do get nervous at some point with those, the ones that are way up there. But at the same token, they're people just like we are. And if you can keep that in your mind focused, you just speak to them like you would speak to everybody else. And what I always say is to try not to recite or to repeat or memorize, but instead to speak from your heart and to speak to what you know. If you know what you're talking about, you'll be able to speak freely and you won't come across nervous or intimidated. But if you are trying to memorize what you were going to say, or that you had something in notes and you're trying to read that, it does not come across as genuine. And I think it's a big lesson to learn. Certainly I wasn't always that confident, but it comes with time.
That's for sure. And now when you reflect on your career, so what would be the one thing you would tell the 20-year-old you if you could have that opportunity?
There would be a few things I would change probably, but my biggest advice would be to go to school. To the 20-year-old Sherry, go to school now, get your secondary education completed now. Don't wait for another 10 or 12 years to finish that off. My second piece of advice is to really invest in the relationships of the people that you work with, the people that come into your world, whether it's through work or through personal, and even if they leave your world at some point during your path, take those relationships and value them, and do your best to hang on to them or keep in touch with them, because it's really relationships that will get you to where you want to be ultimately. And you know, Ada, you and I have known each other for a very long time, and I value very much our friendship and our careers together. They are very similar sometimes, but I just think that that's really important, because you will then build so many connections, and you'll have such a large network to drive from, to be able to, you know, if you find yourself without a job, or you find yourself in a pandemic, that you are able then to reach out to some of your connections, whether it is for professional or even if it's for personal. I mean, sometimes we just need to reach out to somebody that knows us well and understands us well.
Absolutely. This is a very small world, and especially if you want to work in hospitality or HR, it's definitely a very small world.
Yeah.
And Sharon, what do you say as the most difficult thing of being a leader in hospitality?
Oh, yes, that's a big one. The hospitality industry can be challenging. Sometimes the salaries are maybe not as competitive as other industries. So first and foremost, I think you have to love what you do and not be working specifically just for the money. If you're in it for the money, this is not really the right industry to go to. But if you love, and you know, I hear a lot of people that say, oh, I love people, I like to work with people. You really have to like people, and you'll meet so many interesting people, because there's so many different actual types of careers within the hotel, whether it be accounting or whether it's sales or whether it's food and beverage. Maybe you're a chef, or maybe you're an HR, maybe you're a controller or a general manager, but it's such a realm of careers and roads that you can take. That is a positive, but sometimes as you said, it can be a small world, and sometimes the opportunities are not as plentiful as you might find in other places. I find that a lot of people come into the hospitality industry as a part-time job to get them through school or whatever's going on in their world. And that is when those people start their careers. They actually never leave. They're like, oh, I've done school, but I really like hotels or hospitality. Others will come in specifically geared, like, I want to be a hotel general manager. But I often wonder why sometimes people want to be a hotel general manager, because that's a lot of work. This business is 24/7, 365 days a year. We don't close. The doors are open every single day, except for during a pandemic. We're always looking for the right fit. The right fit doesn't always mean that there's anything wrong with you or what your goals or values are. But I also have to look at what's important and what's going to fit with the people that are here. What's in that department? Are you a good fit for that person? And so it's, you know, you have that personal fit, and then you have that organizational fit. And sometimes people take that organizational fit a little too personally. It's not about them. It's just about what's already here.
I agree. Yeah, totally. That's a great advice. And also that being an HR person, when I do recruitment, I often hear people about, how did you judge that I'm not a fit here, right? So it's exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody will come back and say, well, is there anything I could have done differently in my interview? Or what did I do wrong? Or did I say something wrong? And again, there's never a right or wrong answer. You're there giving me your answers. And as much as they might be the right answers for you, if they're not the right answers for me, it's not a reflection of the person. It's just a reflection of what's going to work in this hotel with the people that I have and the demographics that I have, and what the actual work is. And yeah.
And for myself, as a HR consultant and instructor, I have seen many career professionals. I'm always curious about people's career choices and how successful people achieve their dreams. So Sherry, from your perspective, what will be some of the general career or job searching advice that you give to people who would like to get into hotel or hospitality industry?
Right. I'm going to first bounce back to the relationship building, because if you've had the opportunity to meet anybody from a hotel, use that connection to get into a hotel. Just because it's not the hotel you want to get into, they likely know somebody at that hotel. if we were talking just about Edmonton or even Calgary for that matter, I probably know all the HR people in the city, in the hotel world here. So if I knew of another opportunity, I could reach out to that other person for you. So make those relationships, build those bonds or those connections that will help you to get to where you want to be. Some of the professional etiquette is going to probably change just with respect to shaking hands and or I'm a hugger, so I'm no more hugs. But these are things that will have to change. So I think those things will have to come. But at the same time, if you can go into a hotel or go in and ask questions, but also remember that you could meet somebody in the grocery store that could also help you into the hotel. You never know. I get groceries. You could be talking to somebody in line. And so you always want to be on your personal best, put out that great first impression, whether it be in the grocery store lineup, whether it's, I don't know, walking in a restaurant or you're talking in a restaurant. You never know who you're talking to or who could lead you to where you want to go. And so that if you can actually make a good first impression on me, and I have actually hired grocery clerks or people that weren't even looking at the time, but they wowed me when I was receiving service from them. I've said, I think you're amazing. Come and work for me. Here's my card. And then they contact me. So that first impression, if you can make a good first impression on me, you will make a good first impression on my guests, which will keep them coming back, which will keep our doors open, and we'll make lots of money, and you will.
Absolutely, but many job seekers don't think like that. That's why I keep emphasizing to the job seeker audience is that to think like an employer. If you always just think about, oh, I don't have a job, I cannot find a job, it's not going to serve you benefits. No. Always think from the other perspective. How can I help this property to generate revenue? How can I serve more customers? Yes.
And get out and network. There's all kinds of networking events. There's now all kinds of online networking events that you can connect with people, and you never know what connection they might have to get you to where you want to be as well.
That's great. And Sherry, is that hospitality to me is a very interesting field. It's challenging in terms of the work-life balance, but you meet great people that you develop into like a family or friend relationship. And on top of that, I believe that hospitality for people who work in restaurants, hotels, recreational properties, services, they develop excellent interpersonal skills that's going to benefit them over their career life.
Absolutely.
So prior to the pandemic, what are the two typical positions that you see hotels hire? And what are some career paths for people who are interested in those positions?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many jobs. Like I in this property, it's quite unique because we also have a dinner theater. So there's a whole other world right there with respect to the arts and entertainment sector. Like we have costume people, wig people, like makeup people, lighting directors and technical directors. That's just on the, then there's the actors and the actresses and the musicians and everything that goes along with that. Now, not every hotel has that, but I mean, certainly this is what makes our property unique. But if they're coming specifically into the hotel side, usually, we're often hiring for front desk agents, or what we call guest service agents, which is to meet and greet our guests as they're coming into the door. There's certain specific standards they have to follow. In fact, there's actually 40 hours of online training they must complete before we'll even let them go on the front desk. So it's very intense in terms of the training, but we want everybody to be trained to the standard that Hilton wants us to do business as. And banquet department, within our lounge department, within our restaurant department, or even the dinner theater, because it's a big dinner theater and we serve and clear in there as well. So there's a lot of food and beverage positions that certainly could get your foot in the door. A lot of people go in that way and then end up thinking, well, I want to be in sales, or I want to be in human resources, or I want to be a controller or an accountant or a senior accountant, or maybe a front office manager or a banquet manager or a director of food and beverage. There are still leadership positions within those hotels as well, whether it's a hotel manager or a room operations manager, an executive housekeeper. There are a lot of jobs.
Getting into hospitality, there's so many doors that open so many doors.
Yeah,
as long as you show your work ethics and quality of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had people that have started in one and even gone, let's say, came in to be worked in the front office as a guest service agent and gone on to be a maintenance shift engineer. They went and got their 5th class power engineering because they thought, oh, I want to do that here in the hotel. And I'm thinking, who would have known that when you first started, right? So
also, Sherry, in this fast-changing business world, as you mentioned that the post-pandemic business etiquette or maybe skill sets needed are different. So besides networking and relationship building, what is another really important characteristics or skills that business professionals should develop?
Right. Well, I think sometimes I tell our employees that they're like an actor or an actress. Whether it's ironic that I do have a dinner theater here, but at the same time, if they can come in and put on the show, make our guests happy, make an amazing first impression, make them feel like they want to come back and visit us, then that's really what it's all about. We're all human. This pandemic is scary to people. We have crappy days. You wake up grumpy, you didn't have enough sleep, the kids were screaming, you got a flat tire. Things happen, life happens. And sometimes, even though these things have happened, we have to go on and do the show. Just like an actor on TV or soap opera or a game show, certainly no one will be watching them if they went on in a grumpy, not happy type of persona.
And we all will hope that the pandemic will pass us very soon. And how would you see the post-corona world will be different in terms of business operations?
Well, certainly right now I can tell you they're different because there's no operations. But I just, I don't know. I'm hopeful that we can get back to some normality in our business. I think that a lot of the things that we do in terms of whether it's checking somebody in or whether it's in our restaurants, our dinner theater, that there will be probably like no contact type of service where you're not physically touching anything of the guests or wearing some type of personal protective equipment, whether it be gloves or a mask, and until they actually find a vaccine to the point where this is not going to be a concern. It will affect business in terms of numbers until they actually lift the large gatherings regulations. Right now, it's not looking good for organizations that have banquets or have theaters like us. So hopefully that will get better with a vaccine and or have some other way of doing things. Like in a theater, having social distance is really going to cut the theater attendance in half. So what was a 452-seat dinner theater now may become a 250-seat or 225-seat type of theater because we have to go with a booth, no one in a booth. Have a booth, no one in a booth. And again, that was a huge buffet, as we also have in our restaurant. And I'm really not too sure that buffets are going to be a big thing moving forward. With the pandemic in mind and how it can transfer. So
our audience have heard lots of great advice from you today, Sherry. Number one is relationship building and get your education early if you can, and also upgrading your knowledge and true to yourself and keep the best positive image when you're facing the public or job interview situations and be adaptable to the changes that we're experiencing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it. I'm sure our audience will appreciate your time as well. And here you can find the hotel's contact information on our screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.